Closing the gaps in your sales training today on the Blue Collar Proud Show. Hey there, Proud Nation. Welcome back to the show. It's a show that's all about living the blue-collar business dream, and we are excited to be a part of that journey of success with you. Thanks so much for being in our audience. My name is Carter Harkins. With me every week here is Taylor Hill.
Right here, soldiering on.
Soldiering on.
Soldiering on.
I like that phrase. We're continuing a conversation we started last week with Alan Rush from Rush Profits, sales trainer. And we asked him to stay over and talk with us more specifically about where the gaps are in sales training and how to create procedures and processes for selling that help to standardize that. So I think we're going to get into that today. It's going to be a good conversation.
Well, before we do that, tell me a little bit about your experiences when that's not present, when you don't have the standards and documented ways for your systems. I guess in other words, when those gaps are there, what happens?
Yeah, so I think it's chaos, first of all, because everybody does it different. Everybody starts developing their own standard in the absence of a company standard. So this is how they do it, and it's their way, and nobody better mess with their way because nobody's told them that it has to be different than how they do it. So they imagine they've come up with the best way. So there's this unnecessary kind of bickering over, I need information from you, but you're not giving it to me the way that I need that information because your way is different than my way. Standards are competing. And that's the problem with standards is there's too many of them.
Yeah.
So,
we fought that here when we started doing ours.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, whole contingency of people. It was kind of crazy.
So and that's part of growing pains. The way we chose to grow and create processes and procedures and create those standards in our business was by asking our employees to help us come up with them. Yeah. And when you do that, you're going to get differences in opinions about which standard is the better one and why this idea is better than this idea and those kinds of things. So we were willing to do that.
Sure.
But during that period, there was some friction. Yeah. There was absolute friction, different ways that people needed information to be, passed to them and time wasted because systems that, one person was developing, hoping would become the chosen standard for the business and another person had a different plan. And so there was a lot of back and forth. And that's what we typically see in a business is a whole bunch of people that are looking around for leadership. And when a company has a standard, it's because there's been good leadership, because the leaders have evaluated and said, this is the mark we're trying to hit. This is where we're headed. And this standard helps us get there every single time. Right. So, that's the result of good leadership. And when that leadership isn't there, nobody knows what the standard is. So you have a bunch of people walking around going, I don't know, let's do this way, or I'm not going to do it that way. I have my way. So just stay out of my way and I'm going to do it this way, my way, because it's better. And you ought to do it that way too. But I don't care if you do or not, because this is the way I do it. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. And that kind of friction and competition really isn't good for culture.
And here's what happens too, and we experience this. It's really great to do that way when you're small. When you're small, you actually can have different standards for the different people doing the different things. Yeah. What happens is, though, when people start doing the same things differently, that's when you got a problem.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what Alan was talking about specifically in selling, and what we'll cut to this interview here in just a minute to continue it, is the need to make sure that the way that we sell as an organization has a standard as well, because ultimately that's what the customer is going to experience. And so let's roll that. Let's have that conversation with Alan. We'll come back afterwards and continue.
Okay.
Alan Rush, welcome back for part 2 of this great conversation.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been good. I want to get in today. Let me just paint a picture, if you will, for I think what is probably one of the most common things that we see when we start relationships with small companies. And when I say small, I'm talking a typical service company that may be the owner plus maybe one helper or a guy in another person in a truck who's out there in the field on his own selling. The need to start hiring people, to get them in a truck, get them out there and selling. It's just sort of haphazard. It's like, well, you're available, you passed the mirror fogging test, and so we're going to stick you behind the wheel, get you out there making us some money, and there's no real standard. There's no real expectation about what success looks like, how we do things here, what our selling process looks like, any of those things. And so oftentimes it's what we see is business owners setting up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like you're setting up these new hires to fail almost immediately.
Absolutely.
Because the expectation isn't clear about what our process looks like, what our system for selling looks like in our business.
Yeah, and I would even go one step further. I don't think it's just in the sole proprietor, one truck, one helper, or two trucks. I've seen this in the 4 and 6 and 8, and I mean, some pretty big operations. When you start asking them about process, they look at you like you're crazy.
I shudder to think how much money gets left on the table in those situations.
So,
It's insane.
So I'm just saying, I would say, if you're listening to this and you got more than just one truck, it may be valuable stuff here, because I know you're going to enlighten us on processing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's different challenges based on the size of your company, right? So the one truck guy that's literally just working morning to night doing everything himself, and he's trying to he wants to get out of that truck, and he knows that, but he just feels that he can't because he's the only one that knows how to do this stuff. And so the natural instinct is to hire someone and to try to teach them everything that you know real quick, and then to get them out there and put them in a truck because you still got to run your truck or whatever the case is.
Right.
And I think we have false expectations of what we expect that person to be able to do, because it doesn't matter if someone's been there 10 years. No one's going to do it better than you as the owner. I mean, it's your company, it's your pride, it's your baby, it's all those types of things. Until you can get out and truly start developing a system to make them have the skills that you had and to give them the processes that it's not going to happen. And so we kind of step on our own feet a little bit when we're first starting off hiring people, and we throw them out there, and it's like, and maybe it doesn't work. And then so we just think, oh, it's a bad seed, or it's like, I'm never going to grow this seed. That's why I always wanted to be one truck. We've all heard all those types of things. Who needs employees? Right. And so, heaven forbid you ever get hurt or something like that and realize that you didn't have a company, you owned a job, and we've all heard that story.
Yeah.
So the idea of SOPs and the idea of documenting everything that you do early is key. And right, because a lot of times we're creatures of habit. We've been doing it for 20 years, and we just know it, but we've never took the time to document it, and we've never took the time to understand that one day we may have to share what we do with someone else. And so if there's, step one is start documenting and start getting things on paper. And then once you get that, then you can start to develop a process that you can bring somebody into. And so you got to document. I mean, that's where I would tell everybody to start. And then when you get to 3 trucks, 4 trucks, 5 trucks, you're probably out of the truck by this point, and you got a whole nother set of process issues.
That's right.
That is like, we were talking about in the last segment, what do you mean we didn't even send the proposal? What do you mean we didn't follow up? What do you mean, we didn't forward schedule them into next year? What do you mean we didn't do all this stuff? And most of the time, it's just because we didn't have a system or we didn't have a process in place to manage that, and we're expecting people to do those things. And as we know, people get busy, and we're quite the interrupt-driven, individuals, especially in seasonal industries. And so you've got to start with that documentation and make sure you have a defined sales process, and step by step. So whenever a step fails, you can go back to that point and understand where the point of failure was. And then you can either fix that individual or you can fix the process. So.
Yeah. Some accountability.
Yeah.
So talk about, really it starts with training, right? But
Absolutely.
you've got to document your processes first and then train according to those documentation, that process. So talk a little bit about that. What does it take to set that up? What can you do to really begin to build and think about systems that truly work?
Yeah, for sure. And the idea that a lot of people don't want to hear is that just because you're a great salesperson or you're a great business owner or you have even a great company doesn't mean you're a great trainer.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true.
That's the truth.
It doesn't mean that you can take the knowledge in your head and effectively input it into someone else's head and make them be effective with using that information. And so with training, I always recommend that you look at outside sources, people that already have stuff in place, people that already know your industry, people that already know what to do and can understand the style that your individuals go through, or the style that your individuals sell in. And so from a technical part, it's gotten really easy now in this online world, right? You guys know that I'm part of Surefire Training Academy. And so that's the first thing that we recommend everybody do from a technical standpoint. Within 90 days, get these guys from, I don't know the difference between, a brush and a rod to we have them in front of customers.
Yeah.
So, but that's believe it or not, that's the easy part. We can always book smart and learn, but having the ability to understand the sales process and understand how that I can take this knowledge in my head to solve someone's problem, that's a whole nother world. And so the beautiful thing about sales and really the hard thing about sales is that everybody learns differently and everybody's style is different. And so if you have this is the way we do it, and you try to plug people into that, you're going to have failures. And so I highly recommend you have a customized program that understands the pros and cons of each of your individuals, what their comfort levels are in certain areas, and we develop a plan to customize their process to give them the highest chance of success. Yeah. But at the same time, following the full big picture process of our company so that the customer experience is going to be the exact same regardless if we send Bob, Jim, or Bill.
Why is that important? I mean, obviously, as a marketing company, I understand the branding implications, the customer experience, consistency, but why, from a selling standpoint, there's a lot of different ways to sell something. Why is a standardized process and system for selling so important?
Well, that's how we build brands, right? That's how, you go to a McDonald's into San Francisco and you go to McDonald's here in Nashville, you're going to get pretty much the exact same burger. And so on a smaller scale with an individual company, you want the customer experience to be the same. You want expectations to be met. And so that starts to trickle into your reviews. That starts to trickle into referrals. That starts to trickle into things. And when people put their name online and they recommend you, they're putting themselves out there. And if you don't respect that and you give the next customer that they referred a subpar experience, then it reflects poorly on the person that referred as well as your company. And so having that consistent experience is just key. And so understand that your people are never going to always be the same and they're never going to even use the exact same words. But at the end of the day, the customer has to feel that the experience was what they expected and it was met and they would recommend you again.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to consider, and correct me, Alan, if you think I'm wrong, but I cannot tell you, I can just through my head, 5 customers would be able to name off right now that have had the experience of having their top salesperson they feel like they're being held hostage by this salesperson because they're awful for culture. They think they can show up whenever they want because they're the hot dogs.
Yep.
They get paid more than everybody else, and the owner feels like they can't get rid of them. There's no way that they can let that person go. So if you've got a process in place that all your techs have the same exact training, the same exact sales training going in, you will never get held hostage by anybody because now you've got a very balanced team.
It's dead on, and we could talk hours about how having culture and we use that to hire and fire by and all those types of things go into it. But it's classic indispensable employee syndrome. It's the top salesperson. I've been in companies where we have a $2-3 million company. We have one producer doing half of that, and the company's like, I can't lose that person, and they start to do all these concessions for that individual. And all that does is make the rest of the staff say, well, I guess that's the new standard here, and we can do that even though they're not performing at that level. And I'm sure you guys have worked with as many companies that I have, and I've never once had a situation where we have had a bad apple leave that was a high producer that killed the company.
Yeah.
If anything, there was a short dip and the entire company came out stronger and we grew at a faster rate. So.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times everybody else goes, glad he's gone. And then they start picking up the slack.
Producing.
They start producing because they know they need to. It's really, really great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So let me just ask you one other question about the process of sales, because I think you said something that I really want you to speak a little bit more of, and that is we all learn differently. We all sell differently, and a lot of times people equate that to I can't have the same process because people learn differently and sell differently.
Yeah.
So explain how you can have the same process of sales and yet have those different personalities and those different people get through that process effectively.
Absolutely. And so the process is the big picture, right? We want to start with our open, we want to start with our report build, we want to start with doing a discovery and then demonstrate our capability, a lot of the spin, back to the spin stuff, and we want to get to the closing table, and we want to make sure that we're propositioning properly. So we have to do those steps every time, no matter what. Right. I won't name names. Let's say that, but there's people that I've been out with that they're just not good at certain things, right? And like rapport building is one of them, And so if you're bad at building rapport and doing small talk, don't try it. I have been to the point where I want to just hold my, it's so uncomfortable for them and for the customer. And so if that's not a strength of yours, then either we find a way to build you up so that you can do that, or if that's just not in your skill set, then we have to find another way for you to relate to that customer. And so that's where the tweaks come into it, and that's where language comes into it, and that's where styles come into it. But we never compromise the process, because we know if a process works and we follow the process, we have a higher propensity of having a close. And so anytime one or more pieces of that process get removed or edited, then our close ratio is going to go down. And so it's all about those little tiny tweaks that we can do to make the close ratio go up, make the margin go up, make the average sale go up, not the opposite way around.
Right.
Yep.
Awesome.
So let me follow up on that question, because we oftentimes think about looking for the ideal salesperson, right? When we're putting together the job description of who that person's going to be for our business. And from what you just described, it could be that we're missing a lot of our best opportunities and best hires because we're thinking within a narrow window of the way we think it should be sold. And you're saying that a lot of different personality types and styles and everything else, that it could be possible that they're trained and held to a system and a process that we know works, and they could have a lot of success and really enjoy that job.
Absolutely. I think as an industry, as a blue collar world, we have, and I know we've had a lot of other conversations in the past regarding becoming the company that you want for people to come into versus me looking for you, being the person that I want to work for me. And it kind of falls into that. And I think we do close our eyes and we have these certain expectations of they need to be this, and that. And a lot of that is true, but there's a lot of that can be developed. We have the classic, would I rather have a salesperson and train them to be a technician, or a technician and train them to be a salesperson? I would rather have a salesperson all day long. And I promise you'll have a much easier time finding someone with sales experience than you will with technical experience. And so I feel like that you can take that, and they may have some bad habits you have to undo, and you may have to retrain some processes, but if they can talk to people, I've been on, over 1,000 ride-alongs now, and I'm not a chimney guy. Like I'm learning as I go, and I know a few of the codes now and a few clearances, but I'm the least technical guy. I've got this bruise from opening a cabinet, I was like, I am as far from blue collar as you will get. And so, but I can go in and I can sell these $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 jobs, no problem, because I know a little bit more than the customer, and I know how to relate to that customer, and I know how to understand not only do they need this, but do they want it, and is it important to them, and do they understand the impact if I don't move forward with this, what that means to me. And just as long as they're fully educated and I've done my job of making sure they understand everything, then I feel great about it. Right. And then they feel like they've just been, it's the consultative sell again, right? Yeah. It's just like, this guy truly took the time to understand what was going on and to tell me what I needed and why I needed it and what happened if I didn't do it. And man, that didn't feel salesy at all. And so you can train people to have those conversations. And yes, they have to know the technical stuff. They have to be able to identify things. But I would much rather have a salesperson and train them to be technical than I would
to train to be a salesperson.
Yeah. Well, wow. and I personally think that should be the way it is of every single thing in your business, if possible. There are some things, the electrician and plumbing, that to get some of those things, you have to have the skill. But if you don't have to have the skill, I don't care what position it is, I would rather hire for whatever the communication,
absolutely,
culture, all that, and train
absolutely
the rest of the stuff. It's so much easier to do that. So I'm glad you said that, because I think that's really true.
Yeah, and back to, not to pitch here, but back to the online training, you can teach technical anytime, anywhere, any place.
Yes.
Sure.
So I mean, that's becoming an easier way to train, but to teach personality and to teach communication skills and to teach reading customers and to teach objection handling and prevention, all those things. It's a much different skill set, and it's rare when you get that rock star that has both when they come in the door. And so if you're looking for that, you're definitely limiting your opportunities.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let me ask just a little bit more about because hiring is such a challenge, and when you're looking for that person, I want to know what is it specifically that you look for, or that you encourage your clients to look for. Just going down the list. I mean, in terms of what makes a really good salesperson, if that's the thing we're hiring for, what are you looking for in terms of that person? Not necessarily a rock star, just a solid performer.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we've gotten more and I know you guys talked about this as well, we've gotten more into the recruiting world more than the hiring world now, where the economy is where it's at. Typically when we get applications, they're not always the best right now. And so, I've got certain markets where people are happy to get one or two, and I got some that, they get 100. And it's just like, but the first thing I look for, especially in a sales position, is the quality of the resume. I mean, I can tell a lot about how this person communicates and what this person stands for just by the format of it, by the words that they use, by how they present themselves. And then I can also tell if they're talking all about them versus if they're talking about things that they've done for their company. And so if it's a me person, then I got to really have a conversation with that person. Are they going to all be all about themselves, or are they going to be able to buy into what we're trying to do as a culture here and be a part of something bigger? So I mean, that's the big thing. Obviously, I want experience if possible, but again, experience is not a requirement anymore. I mean, it's one of those things that there's times where you can have too much sales experience and you're so set in the way that you do something that to untrain those habits is almost impossible.
True.
So those are the first things I look for and I can eliminate probably 90% of resumes just by reading the resume. Then I start with the phone conversations. How do they communicate? How do they present themselves over the phone? Because I know that they're going to be making follow-up calls. I know that they're going to be calling customers. And then I'll put them through some sample scenarios of, let's pretend you have something to close, or that you have something to propose to me over the phone before I ever meet them. Yeah. And then once I'm ready to get to that smaller pool, then I bring them in. Then it's all about how they present themselves. And I've already got the skills, and I know they have those other things. It's just, are they a culture fit? Are they, presenting themselves? Would I put their representative of my company, and would I put them out there to represent me?
Yeah. You've talked about, recruiting. You're not just sitting back and passively waiting for resumes to come to you and sorting through the stack, because that stack is less and less impressive. Yeah. But actually going out and finding top performers that you want in your business and recruiting them into your own business. And that is the strategy that we think is more effective now. Absolutely. And we've talked with good friends of the show, people like Sam Johnson, for example, who is looking outside of his industry, the traditional pipelines that he's used in order to attract people into his business. And he's looking at other industries for people who have, skill sets that are important, but they're not the skill sets that everybody in his industry thinks is important for that industry. Yeah. Are there other just speaking not only just about the chimney industry, but about blue collar trades in general, are there, and I'm putting you on the spot big time here, okay. So if it takes you a minute to answer, I totally understand. But I wonder if there are any specific industries that you look to that you think there's some really good salespeople there that have had great training that would be super good performers in a blue collar trades business. Yeah,
it's a great question, and I think we, as a blue collar world, we think we have to look blue collar. I mean, it's like the natural instinct is to go to, well, if we can't, nobody's looking to be a chimney sweep. Let's be honest. I mean, nobody's saying let's get on, our Indeed and search for how many chimney jobs.
That's right, Daddy. I want to be a chimney sweep. Said no child ever.
It's not happening. It's like the open of your guys' book, right? It's the story of like that's just not what people are doing, and so then the second thing that we just think is we want to stay in blue collar. So let's go to people that are comfortable on roofs. Let's go to roofers. Let's go to all this kind of stuff. And so that's our pool, and we limit ourselves to that pool. And we're completely forgetting that there's amazing companies out there that have amazing training programs that they put their people through. And so if you start searching keywords of Dale Carnegie, of Zig Ziglar, of anybody that Disney's a great one.
Disney was that's been a big philosophical influence on you, right?
It changed my world. The first Disney class I went to, and that was that would have been 99, 2000.
Yeah.
And I remember the customer service and graining of, you had to pick up every cup, no matter if you were the president or you were supposed to do that, and just the attention to detail. And so find people that have taken the time to do that. Also, there's a lot of educational institutes, like here in Nashville, we have Sandler and we have other things. Right. Talk to them, network with them, because people that are one of those things could be looking for opportunities and looking for jobs. So see if they have a job board. And so think a little outside of the box versus just going through the same stuff that everybody else is doing. And man, you find somebody that's been through some really good training already. One, that they're a little less development required, but two, they want to be developed and that they're willing to take that time to learn. And so that would be my initial thoughts as far as recommendations.
That's huge.
I'm also going to say this because I have personal experience in this. My oldest son went back to college, got a business degree, got a job, sat behind a desk for about 6 months, and hated it.
Yeah.
Hated it.
Yep.
Went back into the restaurant industry, hated that as well, but at least he wasn't sitting behind a desk. And then started working in the oil industry and loves it.
Yeah.
And it's totally blue collar. So don't think that just because someone has other things in their background that they won't do a great job in the blue collar world. We have this idea that if somebody's never picked up a hammer or never done this or done that they aren't capable.
Yeah.
And so my son found his passion at 36. That's how long it took him to do that. So don't discount those people.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I think our natural instinct is the classic. It's the way we've always done it. And excuse me, and so we've become, now that the economy's a little tighter and jobs, people are a little less scarce, we're like, man, there's nobody out there. Are you kidding me? There's hundreds of people out there.
Yeah.
And that's, all the good people, you may have to recruit a little bit. You may have to get creative. But man, if you think outside the box just a little bit, you should have no problem finding quality people.
Absolutely.
That's
we
great.
say it all the time. It's not that there's no good people out there willing to work in companies like these, but it's that we need to start becoming the kinds of companies that good people really want to go work for. So that was good. Any other things that you want to talk about that you think are important to address just as we wrap it up?
No, I think that, if we're sticking to the topic here, the main thing is that if you don't have systems and processes in place, start, right? It doesn't, you don't have to start with everything. Just start documenting little things. It's amazing, when you do a time study of your day. Have you ever done that? Where you go through and it's like, man, how did this 8-hour day, and I feel like I did nothing. And so when you truly, and I do this with salespeople a lot, is like, well, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to make this follow call. All right, well, let's find out where our time's going, right? And so it's just a simple time study. And it's a simple, and once we start realizing how much waste is in our day, and that, I did spend 10 minutes on Facebook, or I did do 15 minutes with this, and I did go on a smoke break, or I did do that, all of a sudden we have a lot of time. And so, but the point of that is the real things in there is your process. It may not be the right process, but it's the things you're doing. So start with documentation and have all your people do it. And let's get together as a team, and let's start putting together everybody's days and say, is this what we want to happen? Is this, where it needs to be? Have you guys ever done the whole value stream mapping where we're putting up the Post-its and we're kind of saying, here's where we start and here's where we end, and it's okay, well, here's what we're really doing, so we need to change that. And so it's that whole idea of just start. And like I said, if you need help, bring in someone. Something I love to do is just to go in and just to say, okay, well, let's look and we'll see what you're doing, we'll see what you're missing, we'll see what's working, we'll see what's not working, what needs to be more developed, what needs to just get rid of it, and let's just start with a process, because you can't scale without process. It's just impossible. And so that's what I would just say is start. Don't be intimidated by it. One SOP at a time kind of deal, and just start. And otherwise, you're going to be in the exact same position next year as you are today.
Oh, man.
I'm going to add something to that.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll agree with me, is don't be afraid of technology, because whether it's online training, whether it's a follow-up app like Closing Commander, whether it's a CRM system, whatever you need to do in process, there are a lot of choices out there that can help you get organized and keep you on track and help you save time so you can do things. You can spend that precious time that you don't think you have a lot of on the things that don't have some kind of a system or process behind it. And I think that, along with everything else, kind of tops it out. And I'm saying that from somebody that's in sales.
No, it is. That is a great closing point, because our natural instinct when we're growing a company is that we want to be in control of it. First of all, we want it because we know it's going to be done right, right? If we do it, it's always done right. But then we can't afford it, right? That's the idea. Well, you can't not afford it. It's like if you truly were to understand what your time is worth in your business and you broke that down into an hourly basis, I guarantee you any amount that you spend on a system is nominal compared to the time that you're wasting doing that yourself. So I'm a huge believer in outsourcing and technology and systems and training and making the most out of doing what you're really great at as a business owner. So
let's put a link in the show notes of one of those great time I can't remember what you always
the time tracking.
Yeah, the time tracking that will actually give you an idea how much your time's worth. I think that would be great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
To find one of those and put those in the show notes.
I'll do that. Make sure you look for that. Also in the show notes will be contact information for for Alan Rush, Rush Profits. I want to make sure you don't get out of here before you tell people how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, no, the easiest way is just to visit our website. It's www.rushprofits.com. Check out our free consultation page, fill out the form. We'll get in touch with you, have a conversation or go to a meeting and understand how there may be a fit there.
Awesome. Very good. Alan Rush, thank you for being on.
Thanks so much, Carter Taylor. Appreciate you guys.
So one of the things Alan said was, just because you're a great business person or you can sell, at the top of your game, you're an A-game seller, does not necessarily mean that you're a good trainer, right? That you may not be the person to develop good systems in your business and train everybody to those systems. So I thought that was interesting and really speaks to the need to bring in professionals who do what they do at the top of their game to impart that into your company as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things that a lot of people don't understand the value of investing in outside help.
That's right.
Yeah, boy, huge.
And if we're going to have consistency in our business, and that was another thing that came up, in the conversation with Alan. If we're going to be consistent, we've got to have standards. We've got to train to those standards, and then hold people accountable, for meeting those standards consistently.
Right.
So what I want to get into in talking with you a little bit is why is it important? And this goes to culture and leadership and a lot of other things, but talk about why it's important to have that consistency in the way that you do things in your business, selling or anything else.
Well, I'm going to just tell a little story. So when my kids were 10 and 12, I was divorced, my first marriage. And, as all kids do, they fought against it and whatever and yada, yada, yada. Well, fast forward about 15 years. What my kids will tell you about me is that I don't waver. They always know what they're going to get, which is not true of my ex. But here's the thing about consistency. People can rely on you. They can count on you, whether it's your employees or whether it is your customers. So having consistency throughout your organization, you become the reliable company that people can count on. You see, when you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, that gets around. When you say you're going to do something and you do it every time, that also gets around. So having the consistency in your systems and having your employees be consistent about certain things is extremely important because that creates a competency that your customers can rely on. It also creates confidence not only in your customer base but also in your employees because they're now confident that they can do all the things that they need to do because they're consistently doing it.
Yeah, they'll be measured by that standard and be shown to be meeting that standard or exceeding that standard. They know where the rules are, where the lanes are, if you will.
That's
they can stay in their lane and do a great job because of that and be confident, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, even to the point that my grandson just had a conversation with him. I told him I would fly him out here and he could help me do some work, but I needed to know by a certain date or I'm not flying him. So I reminded him once, and then I said, hey, today's the day. You never got back with me, so you've got about an hour, because if I don't book the flight today, it ain't going to happen. And he texted me back immediately. He goes, yeah, it's good. All's good. We're good. I thought I told you. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
He knew If he didn't get back with me, he wasn't coming.
Yeah.
And, I've got some money here waiting on him, for him to do some work and help. And he's 15. And if you guys know what a 15-year-old boy, they want money and, blah, blah, blah.
They got things they want to spend on.
But he knew because he knows me and he's heard all the stories, his dad and his uncle, that says, yeah, I better make sure that Poppy knows that or I'm not going.
Yeah.
But that's what consistency does. Now, a lot of people are out there that say, oh, but that's your grandson. That's your... Okay. My job as a grandfather is to help my son make sure that my grandson and his son is responsible and knows how to function in the world so that he can function well when he gets on his own, which is 3 years away. These are life lessons. That's my responsibility. That's what family's responsible for. You're the same as a business owner. You're responsible for your employees and for your customers in the same way. We spend so much time trying to bend over backwards and be what needs to happen what you think everybody is. That's not what it's about. It's about having standards, consistently saying these are the standards. If you want to work here, this is what we live by. And if you don't want to work here, I still love you. But you can't work here if you don't live by these standards. And the same with clients. If they can't live and abide by your systems and what you have, sometimes you got to fire them.
Yeah.
That means if you've got a customer that doesn't pay you year after year, quit doing work for them.
Or a customer that wants you to cut corners and do it, save a little bit of money or do it in a way that's not according to the standard.
It's not up to code or, right. Whatever up to the standards, then don't work with them.
Yeah.
Because that says something about you.
Boy, does it.
Yeah.
That's what consistency is. It's a way of communicating to my customer that I care about what I do. I care about how it's done for you, and I want you to have the confidence to know that we're the kind of business that took the pains to figure out what our standards should be, to train every person according to that standard and equip them with what they need to provide that level of standard service to you. So it really comes down to communication again, and that's been a subject that's come up on this show here frequently in recent times.
And I would even say, as vendors in industries, one of the things that I've heard of, and this is really a sad thing, is when there's a quote unquote favored client. So that vendor will bend over backwards and do everything for the favored client. All the other people in the business see that, and they're not getting the same type of service and the same type of consideration. Speaks volumes. And then that vendor doesn't understand why they're not doing well in a certain industry.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's because they're not giving the same to everybody.
Yeah.
Which is a standard in your business. Same thing.
It's true. Great conversation. And, if you're interested in contacting Alan and finding out a little bit more about his services, the link to his website is in the show notes. It's just rushprofits.com. Check him out there. I think you'll really enjoy what he can bring to your business. I just want to hit some feedback real quickly. We actually have I want to read a post, and it's a little bit long, but I'm going to take the time to read it all because I thought it was really good. This was over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. It's the post of the week, and this week it comes from Christian Devlin, and he starts off. He says, "Perception is reality. You may hear this a lot, but what does it mean? It means no matter how hard you try to be something to someone else, their perception of you is what they have." And then he gives some examples. You can try to convince my wife that your buddy talks to his wife like a dog. Your buddy that talks to his wife like a dog is really a nice guy deep down inside, but in her mind, he's a jerk, and there's no convincing her otherwise. The Chinese buffet that got a C from the health inspector, they really got it together after that report went public. They fired their whole staff. They cleaned everything top to bottom and established new procedures. And they even got an A from the health inspector on round 2. Sadly, though, it wasn't enough. They had to shut down. Unfortunately, the perception in the minds of the small town they operated in was forever ingrained upon their mind. The doctor, wearing jeans and dirty sneakers, examining your extremely ill father, making jokes, smelling like weed. Maybe the next best thing to Dr. Ben Carson, but it's too late. Your perception of him has become a reality. As a service provider, it doesn't matter what you think. It only matters what your customers think. Their perception of you, your men, your CSRs, etc., that is reality. All that great stuff about you and your company that is hidden inside is useless to the person that has never seen inside, has never seen you in action. All people have before they use you is everything you put forth. Your clean trucks, your clean uniforms, by the way you should have uniforms, your friendly, smiling faces on your website, social media, your rave reviews, your happy customers, etc. All of those things tell a story. They tell a story that is reality in the mind of the consumer. You may be able to run circles around the national guys. You and all your friends, you know it. Guess what? Guess who doesn't know it? Mrs. Jones. She's a lonely widow that just moved to town, doesn't know anybody, and certainly doesn't know you. In her eyes, you look like an axe murderer. I mean, you have a beard, and all guys with beards are rapists, right? Her perception of you is her reality. It may not be fair, but it's true. The only time I have ever really changed my ways in this 40 years I've been alive is when someone had the balls to tell me the truth. My old boss told me as a young 24-year-old plumber that I looked like a slob. To be more accurate, he said, homeless man. He said nobody would ever take me serious in the construction industry as long as I chose to keep dressing the way I was dressing. Did I cry? Did I run to my safe space? Nope. I went out that night and bought new work clothes and got a haircut. I decided it was time to start looking like the guys driving nicer trucks than me. I started to play the game. I joined the real world and said to hell with the ideal world, because perception is reality. Hope that helps. Christian, thanks, man. I love how you write. You're just so frank and to the point. I really appreciate you posting that in the Facebook group. That was a great read. If you'd like to let us know how we're doing, we'd love it if you would take a minute to leave us a review over in iTunes. You can also post it on Facebook too. That's fine, but we'd love it to have it over in iTunes because more reviews there means that we're able to attract more listeners and serve them with our content, and that helps to make sure that we keep this project of love going for a long, long time to come. So thank you for doing that. And also don't forget, you can download our free show app in the Apple App Store from Google Play as well. Good content and alerts every single time we drop a new episode. There's bonus content there you can only get in the app and some special offers for you too. And also to remind you to come hang out with us over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. And if you feel like posting like Christian Devlin did there, go for it, man. We might even read it on the show. You can also find out about all the other places where you can connect with us by simply going over to our website. That's bcpshow.com/connect. That's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Thanks for listening. As always, Taylor and I want to just remind you that we do this for you guys. You have a say in the content on this show. We also want to thank the people that make this show happen every single week. Aaron Blaze, our technical director, Jessica Wynn, our show coordinator, and Jonathan Sanders, our community manager. Until next time, remember that it takes the same energy to build a business that you hate as it does to build one that you're super proud of. So why not take your blood, your sweat, and your tears and build your business the blue collar proud way? See you next time.